I lost a loved one this year, and the day after the funeral, I had a meeting at my kids' school. I was still quite upset when I got there, so it took me a few minutes to gather myself before I could actually get into the building. When I actually got there, I met the receptionist, and we made some small talk. I had my meeting with the kids' teacher, and I left and I headed to the supermarket, where I bumped into one of my neighbors and had some more small talk. But it was when I actually got to the cashier, when she started speaking to me, that I just couldn't shake this thought from my head. You have no idea how broken I am. You see, someone seeming to have a very normal day, but walking around with such a painful void inside of them. Now, if someone was shot and walked into that same supermarket, everybody would be able to recognize their wounds. People with physical injuries, you can know that they are in pain. But grief, depression, trauma, anxiety are all so very well hidden, but no less painful. Now, I was having a pretty uneventful day. But can you imagine if I were a waitress and I got the order wrong? If I worked in a call center and some people were unhappy with their service? If I were a delivery person and was late with someone's order? How frequently are people lashed out at for mistakes that we could all make every day? How many hidden wounds are behind polite smiles? How much better would the world be if we kept this in mind when we dealt with each other? If we had a little more empathy and a little more compassion. Compassion. Compassion is all the little and big bits of kindness that you meet in your life. Compassion is that stranger in the supermarket that lets you go first when they see that you're in a rush. Compassion is that neighbor that goes through the hassle of putting out bowls of water for the birds every day on their balcony. Compassion is your relative that changes the subject when people start asking you questions that make you uncomfortable. And compassion is you getting over your curiosity and the urge to ask a coworker what's going on when there's been gossip about them all day at the office and giving them their space. Compassion, empathy, kindness, and sympathy smooth out the rough edges of life. Now, there's a bit of a difference between some of them, and I'd like to share them with you. Sympathy is recognizing the feelings or suffering of another and feeling bad for them from your point of view. Empathy is imagining what it's actually like to be that person or creature and actually feeling what they are feeling. And compassion is doing so, plus the desire to take an action to help. We treat compassion as a good to have, where I believe it to be crucial and very necessary. So much so that I try to plant the seeds of compassion in children when I go and give talks about animal welfare in schools. Yes, this is supposed to be me. And I do so because I believe, in the same way that studies have shown that violent individuals often have a history of being violent and cruel towards animals, that we can use the same correlation and raise decent and compassionate individuals by teaching them to be kind to animals from a young age. I believe that the same way that a child can empathize towards an animal that cannot speak and does not show emotions the same way that we do, he will surely be able to empathize with a schoolmate that is struggling. I also believe that a child that values kindness is less likely to bully other children and more likely to help. Children who are helpful and mindful are more likely to have better friendships and healthier relationships. So do we as a society stress enough on the importance of teaching our children compassion? No, we don't. Our society focuses on academic success and sports achievements. And they marginalize things like kindness and compassion. And they do so because they believe that these are the recipes for success. Our definition of success. And what is our definition of success? Success in itself as a word means attaining a goal. And the goals that we are projecting to our children, the goals that we celebrate in our movies and in our books and in our media, often revolve around attaining one or more of the following: fame, wealth, or a certain job title or academic degree. Now, I want you to envision this life with me and tell me, is this not worthy of being called a successful life? This is Ted. Ted owns up to his responsibilities, whether financial or with care and affection towards his family. Ted has healthy relationships. If Ted is spiritual or religious, Ted manages to fulfill most of his spiritual or religious obligations. Ted also manages to put aside some of his time towards being a helpful and meaningful member of his society. But above all, Ted manages to do all this while being an honest and decent human being. Is this not a life worthy of being called successful? No wealth, no fame, no job title, but no less successful. Now, if we were to break down the components of Ted's successful life, we would find that compassion is at the very core of it. If we take, for example, healthy relationships, we will recognize that a compassionate person is more likely to recognize areas in which people around him need help. He's a good listener, and his compassion drives him to help where needed. He is also less judgmental and more easygoing, so he is someone people can talk to and turn to. All these attributes help them have healthy relationships. They also make them more likable. Now you might say, well, this is all amazing, but what about putting food on the table? Well, I want to share with you something about likability that you might not expect. Studies have shown that likable people are more likely to be hired, listened to, helped, and promoted in the workplace. So yes, compassion helps you in your career as well. It's understandable that a helpful, good listener and a person who takes things less personally, a compassionate boss or co-worker, and someone who gives praise and credit when needed is more likable. And these people are vital in the workplace. Being surrounded by compassionate and likable people create a healthy work environment. And a healthy work environment makes people more loyal, more productive, and less likely to leave. And this is why employers value these employees, maybe even more so than their more competent but more toxic counterparts. Now that was success, and I would like to share a couple of things about happiness. Now, you might want to ask me a very important question. Why is there a picture of a kitten behind the word happiness? Well, I'll tell you, as a true cat lady, and maybe other cat people in the audience might agree with me, for me, kittens equal happiness. But joking aside, there's some truth to that. We now know that happiness has got a lot to do with the chemicals in the brain. Another important thing that we might want to look at is healthy relationships. We've already discussed how compassion helps our healthy relationships, and studies have shown that people who have healthy relationships are more likely to live longer, healthier, and happier lives. Now, how do I practice compassion more in my life? Compassion doesn't have to be about giving away big chunks of your money or volunteering in your weekends. Compassion can be joking with the waiter when they get your order wrong instead of making a big fuss about it. Compassion can be giving your leftovers to hungry street animals. And compassion can even be just staying a bit longer on the phone with your mother and really listening to what she has to say. I believe that compassion is the true secret to success and happiness. And this is my selfish goal of compassion. you.